If you ask, the majority of the people will say, networking is meeting new people who share similar interests. But the way I think of networking, and that has really served me well and served, the people I support well, is
Look at networking more like brewing and making an Indian chai. It will take time. You have to let it brew. It's not like your instant dip tea where you throw in the tea bag, throw in the water, a cloud of milk, and boom, you're ready.
I'm an introvert, I'm a shy person, I can't network. Let me tell you this, introverts actually can do a better job at networking. And the reason for this is because
Welcome to Extraordinary with Chirag, my podcast. I'm excited to bring to you today's episode because I'm going to be talking about a topic that I personally struggled with a lot. And I have firsthand seen others grapple with this entire concept of networking. Let me give you a quick backstory before we begin the episode. I came to Canada 6 years ago. The only person I knew in this entire country was my childhood friend. And he gave me one advice. He told me in order for me to land a job, I needed to start networking with people. I asked him to break this process down for me. And he told me, so you get onto LinkedIn, look at companies where you want to work, look at the people who are working in those companies, and reach out to them for an informational conversation. In that informational conversation, you will tell them about your experience, your knowledge, your skill set, your achievements, and hopefully, at the end of the conversation, they will like you enough to refer you to the HR for a role that may be open or something that may come up later. It seemed very simple and straightforward, but it really wasn't because there were a million questions I had which were going on in the back of my head. That firstly, I had to write to complete strangers. What will I write to them? That, hey, I came across your profile on LinkedIn. I love your journey, would love to know more about you. Can we meet for a coffee or an informational conversation? And once I meet them, how am I going to strike a conversation? Am I going to be only talking about myself? At the end of the day, he or she also knows the reason why I'm reaching out to them. There was a certain guilt associated with this entire process because I knew at the end of the day there was a benefit that I was looking for during that conversation or from that conversation. Now, add to this, there are people who are introverts who essentially don't fancy having conversations with strangers, let alone the fact that they don't like talking about themselves as much either. Throw into the mix students who do not have any experience, have just finished their studies and courses. They're expected to reach out to industry professionals, senior leaders, and introduce themselves, tell them about who they are, what they've done, and ask for jobs. This entire concept seemed very warped and there was no authenticity to it. How am I supposed to make meaningful connections when I'm not being authentic about it? I'm sure a lot of us do feel like this even now. And if you're struggling with this entire beast called networking, well, you're in the right place because in today's episode, I am in conversation with a friend of mine, Yauhan Mehta, who has been recognized as one of the top voices on LinkedIn. Johan is also recognized as the top career coach in Toronto for 2023. And if you see the entire episode, by the end of it, I promise you, you're going to take away a lot of actionable insights on how to approach people, how to be authentic, how to make meaningful connections. All this that will help you elevate your career and help you level up. Lastly, before we dive into the episode, a quick sponsor mention. Today's episode is brought to you by Kent Water Purification System. They're the pioneers in providing you with tasty, healthy, and chemical free water. Please contact their team on the number given below for a free consultation and a free water test. Now, enjoy the conversation. Johan, good to have you on the show. I'm excited about this conversation of ours. We've been trying nail down a time together. Finally, it's happened. Let's dive right into it. You've been recognized as the best career advisor and influencer to follow on LinkedIn. This is a big thing. So you got to tell me, how did you start this journey? Let's go back from day one when you did not have as big a following as you do now, and you did not have all these plaudits that were coming your way. So how did you start? And
Yeah.
the journey from there to today.
Yeah, so I will take you a little bit back in time. I don't remember exactly when, but I'm trying to remember, when was the first instance. And I think it was about 12, 13 years ago. This was when I was as an undergraduate student at the University of Toronto over here, and I got my internship at the Career Center. And at that time, I didn't have obviously much of knowledge or experience, but just the fact that, working in UFT's Career Center was itself in itself a pretty big um, achievement to secure. This is where I started, developing both the skills as well as the interest in careers, in helping people decide, what's next for them. What does the job search look like? What to put on your resume? How to interview? So that's when I had my first exposure, close to 15 years ago. I had it again when I started my masters,
Hmm.
and I was again a part of the career center over there, doing very similar things to what I did with UFT. And this made me realize that helping people with career, which is such a big part of someone's life,
Hmm.
is so rewarding. I didn't think too much of it at that time because both of these were internships. But then I got back into it 3 years ago, so 3.5 years ago, at the onset of COVID in March 2020. So I remember my LinkedIn inbox filled with, in the first month, filled with messages around, Johan, we've been laid off, or we anticipate being laid off. You work for Deloitte, can you guide us? And they must have
Hmm.
seen something on my profile with regards to the career guidance experience I had in the past as well. And I spent a few months just giving a lot of information, advice to people through LinkedIn, through coffee chats, until one fine day, someone mentioned to me that, Johan, you've given me so much in terms of value. I would like to compensate you for this.
Hmm.
And I never thought of even doing this for monetary reasons, but that sparked the idea then of having this more than just a passion project. And I haven't looked back since then. So yeah, 3.5 years doing it formally, many years before that doing informally in terms of guidance. So I work right now, as a career coach, helping people all across Canada and the US. I also am employed with Deloitte Canada
Right.
with their internal consulting practice. So I do a lot of change management, business transformation work for Deloitte internally.
Wow.
And then I am a busy dad as well. So, I have two
Yeah.
daughters, 9 and 6, and we just had our baby who's now, 4 months as of today. So today it's just four
Congratulations.
months.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the day just keeps getting better and better for you.
Yeah.
More and more reasons to celebrate.
Yeah, it's a special day, definitely, Shirag. And so happy to be here. So grateful that you invited me to your esteemed podcast. I mean, I've listened to other episodes where you've interviewed so many, friends of mine, and I would call them, really celebrities. And the fact that now you've called me is a true honor for me. Thank you so much.
No, listen, I genuinely mean it that all the people that I've had, a lot of research goes into it, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing my best in terms of getting the best people out there in the world who are making an impact and literally leading an extraordinary life. So I take credit for having a keen eye on the talent that I'm bringing in, but of course I can't take credit of the fact that you're making such a huge impact and adding so much of value to people's lives. And while we're on that topic, so here is a good segue into what I want our conversation to be today, and I hope this converts into a series. So what I'm looking at is Johan, that I want to talk about people and their troubles with the entire concept of networking. We have this imposter syndrome or guilt. I don't know how you want to qualify this, because typically what happens is that when you talk about new immigrants who come to Canada from any country, right, they are struggling for jobs, and it's not a straightforward process. Even if people get jobs, many a times they have to take it a level down because they don't have the relative Canadian experience, etc. Conversation for a separate podcast. But there is this sense of guilt that, hey, I'm going to reach out to people and immediately ask them for a job. So that sort of holds you back because you're approaching this in a very transactional sense. And then also people who get busy once they get their jobs, and suddenly reality strikes, whether they need a change or they, for whatever reason, whether it's about leveling up or getting stuck, they want to get back to the networking game again, and then it's the same process: imposter syndrome, guilt. So I want a master class on networking from you.
Sure.
Let's begin by understanding, why is networking actually important and does it actually work?
Yeah, yeah. So all valid points, Chirag, in terms of, what you've said about networking. I think before we get into, why networking is important, what the value for networking is, I want to take a step back and talk about, what exactly is networking.
Hmm.
Now, if you ask, the majority of the people will say, networking is meeting new people who share similar interests, possibly a similar profession as you. They may say, it's about connecting with people who have similarities or common interests, and essentially an exchange of information and ideas, right? Most people would think about networking in that way. All of that definitely is true, but the way I think of networking, and that has really served me well and served, the people I support well, is think of networking not just as, like you mentioned as well, as a transaction or just an exchange of ideas or information, but about from the perspective of relationships. So it's about building genuine relationships, building long-term relationships, building mutually beneficial relationships where it does not feel like a transaction. It feels like, having a conversation with a friend, getting to know that friend, and then developing a deeper level connection with them. So if you change, that mindset where you're not thinking about, okay, I need to network to learn, I need to network to get a job, I need to network to improve my personal brand. All of that, yes, will organically happen. But if you start with, let me just get to know the person, learn from them, build a relationship, build a friendship, this will then take away a lot of the guilt, a lot of the doubt, a lot of the imposter syndrome that majority of us experience with, building a relationship with a new stranger. So that is what I would like to say first is, your mindset around what networking is. Now, why is networking important? I mean, there's so much out there which will justify, your time spent well on networking. There's studies out there. If you look at from a job search perspective, there are studies out there that have shown that, 80% of the jobs out there are filled through networking. It's
Hmm.
because you know someone, or you know someone who knows someone, or someone knows you and remembers you and reaches out to you, right? So 70-80%, that's a pretty high statistic, right?
That's
Which
a
means,
massive
8 out of 10. That's a pretty high number. So I would say yes, as a job seeker, building these meaningful connections or quote unquote networking
number.
is a huge part of your job search strategy. Okay, and we'll
Right.
get into, how to approach that maybe in a few minutes. But let me tell you first, why is it important? So obviously very important to secure your next job. Very important also to build relationships, which in turn helps you get ideas from people, which in turn helps you learn from people, which allows access to new information that you probably wouldn't have if you don't speak to people. It
Right.
also raises your personal profile. It
Right.
elevates your confidence. It
Hmm.
lets you practice your communication skills. It lets you build relationships, which, in turn, definitely go on to serve you in the future. So many different benefits of networking, and I would strongly recommend spending significant time on this.
Thank you for sharing that, and it's really well said. I like the way that you've broken it down. And if I may add to it and throw this back at you as well, considering that you are a career coach and you've helped so many people land, firstly, crack a job in Canada in the field that they've wanted, and hopefully a lot of them also land their dream jobs. Networking doesn't a get restricted to LinkedIn and stay there, right? I'm guessing that once you're in an organization or you're an entrepreneur, it's about building those meaningful relationships continuously. And it's like building that muscle where you are proactively engaging with people, building your personal brand. People can vouch for you, the kind of person that you are. So maybe not just would it help you to get a foot in the door in the organization, your next promotion,
Absolutely.
does that get impacted through networking? I mean, it's a snowball effect, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So yes, networking is something not just for the purpose of securing a job, but also sustaining your job, and also building your personal brand while you have that job, and then helping you again move on to the next opportunity. You bring up a good point. When people think about networking, especially in the COVID age right now,
Yeah.
a lot of the focus is on online networking. And
Yeah.
yes, of course, you can message people on platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, right? There's many social media platforms out there. LinkedIn definitely being, the pioneer that I would recommend as well, especially from an opportunity, business, job search perspective. Networking, though, if you really wanted to do it effectively, there needs to be some sort of an offline connection with that person, right? Messaging someone is good. You can definitely get to know them, and build somewhat of a relationship with them. But when you have a face to face, where you're looking at them, they look at you, they feel your emotions, right? This then will take that relationship building to the next level. And of course, if you want to then take it even to the next level after that, in person is always recommended. Now, it's very challenging to meet hundreds of people in person.
Yeah.
Takes up a lot of your time, but at least try to have a video call where you guys can look at each other, and that I found it to be really really effective. And it's not just social media where you can meet people. I have met a lot of good friends of mine at career fairs,
Hmm.
at events,
Yeah.
at workshops, right? So there are many opportunities, even industry events. For example, over the summer we had something called the Collision,
Right.
which was the biggest IT event that happened in Toronto. So
Yeah.
that would be a fantastic opportunity for you to meet with other IT professionals, with employers looking for IT talent.
How much do you see people not leveraging this? Because obviously, people who are coming to you, they are coming to you with a problem, right? Where they need expert advice, where they need help. So, what have you seen are probably, if you could give me like a top two, three sort of mindset blocks that people have towards networking, where they've genuinely struggled and they don't understand how to approach it.
Yeah, there are so many blocks and so many myths of networking out there, right?
Right.
So I'll give you maybe three or four. So one that I hear all the time is, I'm a shy person. I mean, I'm an introvert. I'm a
Introvert,
shy
yeah.
person, and I can't network because I'm not comfortable talking to strangers. Let me
Hmm.
tell you this: networking is not only for extroverts,
Right.
right? Introverts actually can do equally, if not a better job at networking. And the reason for this is because introverts are much better with listening,
Hmm.
right? And typically, when you start networking with someone, it's not about talking, it's about listening. It's about getting ideas, getting that person's perspective on things, learning from them, getting their guidance and advice. So that listening works to your advantage as an introvert. The other myth I've heard is networking to me feels very much of a transaction. But
Yes.
again, it's because of your mindset. It's because you're looking at networking for the purpose of personal gain. But if you
Hmm.
look at networking as, again, building relationships, being authentic, it won't feel fake to you. The other one I hear is, networking stops once you have secured your job. And you touched upon this
Yes.
earlier as well. I would say, I've secured some really amazing jobs in my career, but my networking intensity has just amplified over time, and I have not been complacent. Not because am always looking for the next big job. No, it's because I just feel that networking opens so many opportunities for you,
Right.
not just from a job search perspective. So even when you are in a job and you're satisfied in your job, it's still important to stay connected with people, build relationships with people, because you never know what comes out of that.
Absolutely. And that is the period that I categorize as convenient complacency because that's when you tend to drop the ball because many a times the money is just about right, your boss is just about okay, the culture is just about all right. So you're possibly in just about an all right sort of a situation until and unless then, there is this sudden realization and you're like, okay, oh no, this is not the life that I had envisioned for myself, and I need to now have a major shake up of things, and I want to chase my dream life. And that's when again a whole set of bricks fall on your head and you're like, oh my god, now I have to go to the drawing board again. So it's maybe more about just making this a habit and building it into your ecosystem. I love the information that you've been sharing with me so far. This is absolutely what I had envisioned and even better. So let's do one thing. Let's really have like a pointed sort of a conversation wherein I'm going to throw these questions at you. It can be me who's woken up from this slumber of realizing, okay, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, or it can be me, a newcomer to the country, who's shy, a little underconfident, and still at the same time understanding the lay of the land
Mhm.
to reach out to people. And then there are obviously a cultural shock that I have to go through. So number one question, if I am this guy, how do I reach out to people, and how do I connect with them? What would be the process from your end?
If you look online or talk to coaches or career experts, you will get all kinds of opinions in terms of what is the best approach or best strategy to network. I would say the best strategy is the one that works for you. Like, I have an approach which I'll tell you.
Hmm.
However, customize this and tailor it, to what works for you. Because,
Right.
like you said, if you are a newcomer to the country, obviously you don't know too many people,
Hmm.
and the approach will be very different than someone who's lived here, worked here for 10, 20 years, like myself. Right, I have already a network. Now it's about how to reconnect, strengthen those relationships, and continue on from there. So I will speak to someone who's relatively new to the country or hasn't been here long enough, and just doesn't have a big or strong enough network. The first thing, and this is universal across all kinds of jobs, industries, sectors. Best practice number one step is always to identify what is it that you want with networking. Like, what is the purpose of you doing this, right? And it's not always to do with job or a promotion. Sometimes it's just to learn. Sometimes it's just to connect, right? So step number one is being very clear on your networking purpose and your networking goals, and reminding yourself that networking is not about asking people for favors and help, but just about getting to know them and building a meaningful connection with them over time. So that's step number one.
Love
Step
it.
number two is, once you have that clarity, then okay, who are the people that I need to network with to achieve that goal? Right? So let's just take the example of a job seeker. So, as a job seeker, who do I need to network with? So, you need to first of all be clear on, what is it that you want in your job? So, what is the role? What is the industry? Right? What's the
Right.
location? And then LinkedIn is such a powerful search engine. Once you have the role, industry, company, and location defined, you can do a very quick search and find the right kind of people. For job seekers, typically it's best to network with people who are in a similar role that they aspire to be in, because who better to learn about the skills, the experience, the success factors required for the role than someone who's doing it themselves,
Right.
right? The
Right.
other people I recommend reaching out to is people who work in the company that you'd like to work for, right? And this is an amazing way to find out about the company and the ins and outs of the culture that you typically wouldn't find online in your research. And then you can just network with people who you generally, after looking at their LinkedIn profile, you generally feel a connection with, right? So maybe they moved here from the same country you moved here from. maybe they went to the same school, maybe they have these two or three really good friends of yours in common as well. So networking is always the strongest when there is a little bit of that common connection, whether that is based on education, interest, or geography. So that's the research step, is researching and making a list of those people. And then it's basically execution, right? So in execution, the mistake people make is sending out a message and making the ask for a job or a referral or help. But like I said, that will organically happen. So the first message you send to them has nothing to do with the job, should not be anything to do with you asking for help. It
Hmm.
is showing them that why is it that you want to connect with them, what is it that you want to learn from them, what do you need their guidance on, and equally important, what is it that you can give back to them as well. So that's the approach. So I would say, follow them first, look at what they're posting online, engage with them. I love to compliment people, but genuine compliments on things they've done recently, or things they have shared recently that inspire me. I also like to approach things with the attitude of kindness and compassion. So whenever you're kind to someone in the first or second interaction you have with them, that is extremely powerful. That automatically makes them like you and trust you. And relationships are built on likability and trust. So that's the first approach. And then, of course, like I said, exchange some messages. Hopefully, you have things to say after you've researched their profile. Get on a phone call with them or meet in person over coffee or lunch, and then look to build that relationship. And then you can make your ask very confidently, and I'm sure they wouldn't say no.
Absolutely love what you said. I have known you for a bit, so I definitely knew the reason why you have been recognized as one of the most influential career coaches and influencers on LinkedIn. It was only a matter of time. Everybody listening in today would have also now realized why is it that you got been recognized with this award. Amazing, love it. I have two questions over here, and probably some people may be thinking. Now, one, when you said that have an element of giving back to the person that you're reaching out to as well, right? Now, hey, I am a new immigrant in Canada who purely is looking to get a job. What can I possibly give back to you? Number two, I am a student who's coming out of a university, right? What is it that when I think about it, logic prevails, and this is where the probably the imposter syndrome also comes in, right? I'm a student. What can I possibly give back to somebody who's a seasoned professional in his job and has a good career going? So what do I have to think about to be able to overcome this barrier?
I get this question all the time, that, from students, from seasoned professionals as well, that
Yeah.
Johan, you know, I am looking to connect with managers, hiring managers, directors, VPs, right? Recruiters who've been here for so long. What can I possibly do for them, or what value can I provide to them? And again, there's many things you can do, and I'll give you some examples of things you can do for them. But before we get into those examples, again, I want us to think about what networking is,
Mm-hmm.
right? So networking again is not just about what you can gain, but it's about how you can help others,
Right.
right? And what can you give others as well as receive from others. So it's a give and take. Initially, it's more about giving, right? And then if you give enough to someone, whether that is recognition, praise, resources, content, automatically they will, be, feel very connected to you. And when someone's connected to you, as human beings, we automatically start giving back,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now let me tell you what you can give, right? You can
Absolutely. Yes,
give
please.
many things. Number one, on LinkedIn. So let's talk about LinkedIn, because that's where I recommend job seekers to network
Agreed.
and connect. So number one thing you can give is engagement. What do I mean by engagement? I mean engage with them, engage with their content on LinkedIn, right? Share it with your network, right? If they post something and you share it with their network, they're going to love you for that, right? Because now not only have you engaged and given them your point of view, or your thoughts on it, but now you're sharing it with your broader network, right? And let them know that, I found this to be so insightful and inspiring. I've shared it with everyone in my class or at my company or in my network. So engagement is one. Second is experience. And you might say that, okay, I don't have experience. How
Hmm.
can I share experience? Think about not experience literally. Think about experience that you have gained in your life. So, all of us, whether you're a student or a CEO, you have gained experiences in your life, right?
Hmm.
Through education and just through living life. In those experiences, you've developed some skills, right? So think about what those skills are and think about how you can help them with those skills. So I'll give you an example, right? You might be a student who recently graduated with absolutely no internships, no experience, but maybe you have an interest in marketing and you're really good with your Instagram handle and your account. And this person you're networking with, he's amazing in terms of his knowledge with the topic, but he's really now trying to get his name out there and he has no
Hmm.
idea how to use Instagram, right? So this is
Hmm.
your opportunity to teach them a little bit about digital marketing. Let's say another person is really looking at building their brand, their website as well, right? And you've designed websites in the past, so this is something you can help them with. So again, it's a little bit of a reflection on what skills you have and then how can you leverage those skills to help other people. Connections is another one that you can help people with. So maybe you don't have a specific skill set, but maybe you have connections in terms of people that you can help them with, right? So let's say they are looking for a permit, and somebody who works in the city office who can give them a permit, right? Or they need some help with the immigration, and someone working, or they need someone at the airport to help them with something. So again, there are people in your network who possibly can help this person. So connect them with those people, or ask them, is there someone in my network that I can introduce you to, right? And then a couple more things. One is
Hmm.
resources. So if you find something that is of interest to that person, right? So let's say this person is really into AI, and you're not into AI, but this person is into AI. So now if you want to build that relationship, set up some alerts for yourself, like articles, blog posts, YouTube videos on AI related topics, and then share it with this person. So now you've saved them time, right? Time that they may have to have researched for to find these videos or these courses or these podcasts. So any resources that you feel could be helpful. And then the last thing is time, right?
Hmm.
Time is a very precious gift as well. So the fact that you are giving them your time by giving them engagement on their content, sharing your skills, willing to help them in your time is a very valuable gift as well. So that's another thing you can give back to them. The last thing I would say over here is, people feel like reaching out to people and asking for their advice is not good use of the other person's time. But
Hmm.
again, remember that human beings inherently love to help,
Right.
right? When you share ideas, when you share information, when you help someone, internally you feel really good doing that because you're helping somebody else. So these people who you're connecting with, they actually will like to spend time with you because that will make them feel good too.
Right.
So again, it's if you think about it that way, networking becomes a fun game.
Dropping so much of wisdom and so much of value, Johan. I'm a fan of everything that you said. Specifically, two things stand out. One is the fact that you mentioned about time. And I definitely feel this, and it's anywhere in the world, wherever you go, all of us are always pressed for time because we are multitasking. There's so many things. So, the one thing that people are not open to giving is their time because there is so much that they have to juggle at the same at any given point in time. So obviously it's a scarcity, it's a scarce commodity. So you need to really be able to bring some sort of value and stand out in this process so that somebody looks at me. So I really like that. The other thing that you said, that people inherently like to help other people, I resonate with that too. And I'll add something a little bit more to it, is that people like helping other people more who they actually like. So if they like you, people do tend to go out of their way. And I'll just probably add another spin to it. Even if we talk about, I mean, definitely I'm like that. I everybody has a lot of relatives as well. You don't go up. A, you're not in touch with everyone. B, you're not going to help everyone, because what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You're like, hey, I haven't met you for so long, or I haven't spoken to you for so long. Today, suddenly you need something, so you've remembered me, right? And it's actually something that happens with everyone, irrespective of what country or culture you come from, or what is the color of your skin. That does not uh, uh, you know make any sort of a difference, because that's what you feel. Therefore, like you said, it's important to engage with people. And I'm really happy with the kind of nuances that you've shared, like doing something for someone, even if I am not an expert at something, but if I know something better. And if you're a student, one thing is given, that you're coming from a generation which is probably little more savvy with AI, with the new tech around, so you can always help that person who's even 2 3 4 years ahead of you, because that person is going to take a lot more time getting used to everything that you're going through right now, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I've had so many instances where, students have told me that during networking, they have helped people at the executive level, right? With especially with technology, right? Like Chat
Isn't that the
GPT
case?
4, like, the CEO is looking to write something and they're like, here, just this use this prompt in Chat GPT
Yeah.
and save yourself 2 hours, right? So
Absolutely. They say, right, as you go up the corporate ladder, your ability to work with technology somehow just takes a
yeah.
little bit of a dip. And this is your gateway, right? You need to look at this. I think overall, what your response has been, if I was to, summarize that, we need to look at networking more like brewing and making an Indian chai, which is that it will take time. You have to let it brew and steep. It's not like your instant dip tea, where you throw in the tea bag, throw in the water and a cloud of milk, and boom, you're ready. You have to let it marinate for a while, and really approach it with that sort of a process.
And I love the analogy of using the farming versus the hunting approach to networking. And I got this from Luki, who
Right.
you've interviewed as well. So
Yes.
what he says is, you have to think about building relationships and nurturing relationships,
Right.
and that is similar to farming, right? So when you farm, or when you even grow plants, or fruits, vegetables in your backyard, there is a lot of time and effort and investment that goes into it, right? Where you have to get the right soil, you have to nurture it with sunlight, with water, with nutrients, and then over time you get the fruits for it, right? But
Hmm.
it does take time and hard work to get to that stage, as opposed to hunting, right? Hunting is a very transactional, short-term game where you hunt, you kill, you eat, and it's done, right?
Right.
So farming versus hunting. So always farm when you network with people, because this is how you will genuinely build and nurture relationships, and these relationships sometimes will last a lifetime, and
Right.
they will come back, maybe not immediately, but maybe after a few years. I get messages all the time right now from people who I connected 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Hmm.
Saying, Johan, I remember what we spoke about 3 years ago. I remember what you posted, or I remember the help you'd given me, and now I wanna get your help, right? And I had completely forgotten about these people, but they remember me because of something that I must have done, right? So never discount people in relationships.
Absolutely love that. It is such a great analogy. I think that really gives perspective to how one should be approaching networking. And that's how you also convert that into a process and build it up as a muscle, wherein you're not looking at an instant shot or nitro shot,
Mhm.
which just is one time use and throw, but you're looking at longevity, and you're looking it at as building a long-term relationship. Now, while I'm doing that, how do I make sure that I come across as authentic? Because at the back of my mind, still, and here is where I want to understand that when you're approaching it even from a farming perspective, when you're starting it out, you have the end goal in mind, that at some point in time I may need to call in a favor. So is there a way where we can be authentic towards approaching this entire process of networking and reaching out to a person? So how do we maintain our authenticity?
That's the toughest part.
Hmm.
Maintaining your authenticity, being genuine is the toughest part. I would say, just be yourself. And unless you are like a super jerk, you will end up doing well in networking and you will end up, making good friendships along the way. So again, comes down to first and foremost your intent and your mindset. Yes, everybody, when they connect with people, they're looking for some sort of gain, right? Whether that is gain in knowledge, information, ideas, resources, job, whatever that is. But if you put that aside, and if you also lower your expectations, that I'm not going in just for this sole purpose, I'm going in to make a friendship and exchange some value, exchange some information, and then we'll see where it goes, right? So if you connect with 10 people, you can expect all 10 of them to come back and help you in some way, because that's a very high expectation. But even if you expect maybe like one out of those 10 people to do something back for you, either in the short or long term, and if they do in fact do that, I think that's a win, right? So be yourself, look at it again as building friendships, lower your expectations, and focus more on giving, because again, giving builds likability builds trust, and then trust and likability in conjunction typically makes them do something nice for you.
That's my episode's Insta reel right there.
There you go.
Love that, man. Absolutely. I think that's pretty much like a mic drop moment there. How to be authentic and how to be genuine. I don't think you could have explained it and coined it better. Thank you for that. Now, again, a couple of questions which are randomly coming to my mind, and I'm purely talking from an immigrant standpoint. When you're in a new country and you don't have the existing network that you've left behind, you're looking at a building someone. So what happens is you rely on familiarity. Now, do you mind busting any myths around this, that if I am a person of color, am I supposed to go after people or reach out to people who look like me, or is it something that I can reach out to people from other cultures and races as well, and reach out to them and seek this sort of connections?
I mean, Toronto and Canada is very very diverse, right? So if you just walk on the streets and meet 10 people, I'm sure 7 or 8 of those 10 people are immigrants,
Yeah.
right? Who have moved here from different countries. So I would say definitely don't restrict yourself
Hmm.
to people who look and feel and sound like you. Although you may be most comfortable with them, don't restrict yourself to them, because then you're again operating with a very narrow mindset in a very familiar territory, and that may not serve you, right? So
Right.
I would say look beyond that. I think there are a few criteria that you should look for if you want to do this strategically. So the
Hmm.
first is find something in common with that person, something that you feel you can relate to, and doesn't have to necessarily be that they're from the same country or they speak the same language. It could be that education wise you guys are both graduated from the same school, or food wise you guys like the same food if you find that on their profile, or travel wise you guys like to travel to beach destinations, right? Or you have the same podcast that you follow or same influences that you like, right? So it could be many things, and it doesn't have to be again someone that looks and sounds like you. The second is think about what is your goal with networking, which for most newcomers is getting a job, settling down into the country, right? And then
Absolutely.
think about who are the people who can influence and help you with that. There are few different groups of people who I recommend reaching out to when you come here. The first is there are lots of government agencies. Okay, so I'll give you a few names. So Access Employment, Achieve, JVS, right? TNO, some examples of organization who are focused specifically on helping immigrants, newcomers settle into the country and secure jobs. So I do a lot of volunteer work with some of these companies, and I present, career related workshops to help these people get acclimated to Canada and then, start their careers over here. These agencies provide a lot of free resources, workshops, connection, and they have helped people for many, many years obtain successful jobs. So why not leverage a resource that the government is providing to you? Right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, in addition to these, there are private groups that have been set up that also help newcomers. Right, so there's one that I like a lot. It's called Immigrant Networks. It's founded by Nick Nurani, so you can look
Hmm.
him up on LinkedIn.
Oh, he's a rock
And
star.
he's lived through that immigrant journey now for 20 plus years. And
Absolutely.
he genuinely has, an interest and a care for helping new people become successful in Canada.
Yeah.
And there are other, organizations similar to them, but they've been doing some really, really good work for a long time. So definitely, connect with his organization. And they have ambassadors, 30, 40 ambassadors who are
Yeah.
also newcomers, but who've obtained, really good roles in top tier companies. So who better
Yeah.
to learn from than people, who've already lived that journey? So that's
Absolutely.
that's the second resource. The third resource I would say is find people who have recently moved over here and who have been successful, getting to the goal that you're looking to get into, right? So someone who, let's say you're looking to get into marketing, right? So
Yeah.
so go and find people who, moved here maybe 6 months, 1 year ago, and now they're working in a marketing role or working in a company that you really want to work for, and they will give you specific guidance on, do this first, do this second, talk to these three people, take this certification.
Yeah.
And this way it saves you hours and hours of researching online and trying to figure all of this by yourself. And then the last thing I would say is, surround yourself with positive people. It
Oh,
can get
that's critical.
Yeah, it can get extremely, draining and mentally, extremely challenging, to not have a job, to start depleting your financial resources, to get, used to a new culture,
Hmm.
company, not have, as many friends as you did back home, miss your
Yeah.
home country. So the more you can, surround yourself with people who uplift you, who cheer you on, I think is just going to help.
Amazing. That's really valuable insights again. And let's wrap this up because I think we've missed out on one set of people, and it sort of adds and it cuts through all categories as well. So, whether you're a new immigrant or somebody who's been here a second job, but also let's add people and who are looking at a career pivot as well. Because what I feel is one thing that really helps in building meaningful relationships and gaining valuable experience is volunteering as well,
Yeah.
which you touched upon. So I will let you shed some light on how critical is volunteering in all this.
Volunteering is such an underutilized tool,
Yeah,
that a lot of people, either are oblivious to or don't want to do it because it's effort, time, and you're not getting paid money for it.
exactly.
However, again, if you think short term, then you are most likely going to end up with something that's not, up to your potential and fulfilling. So volunteering is a great way to learn, to build skills, to build experience, to meet new people who then could potentially have an influence, right?
Hmm.
We talk a lot about, lack of Canadian experience being, such a huge roadblock,
Yeah,
and what better way to gain experience than to volunteer,
absolutely.
right? So it has just, so many different advantages. You don't have to do it for years and years and years, although you can choose to do it. But even if you just do it for a few weeks, a few months, the benefit that you will gain will last for many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, inherently what you said, and you've repeatedly tried to drive home the point, is that give before you take, or definitely have that element of giving back equally as well. And volunteering is probably the best way to begin to be able to understand that mindset. It gets you in the room of people that you need to be with. It gets you, even if you don't know anybody, and if you're trying to pivot from one career to another, nobody's paying you for it, but if you're there, putting your time in, you're only going to learn and take away experiences, knowledge, skill set, connections, and value from volunteering. So definitely, like you said, a very underutilized and undervalued tool in this entire gamut of things.
Absolutely.
For me, this masterclass from you on networking 101 has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Chirag. I mean, the reason why I think this session was also so good is because you asked me all of the right questions, and you asked me questions that so many people ask me, and now hopefully, through this podcast we can reach the masses, and a lot of these common questions that I would typically answer as one-offs now hopefully will reach hundreds, hopefully thousands of people,
Hmm.
and they'll benefit from advice that is proven,
Yes,
advice that has really worked for many many people. So
absolutely.
no, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for asking me, all of the right questions, and look forward to continuing, the conversation on future episodes.
Right. And before I let you go, let's bring this home now. Obviously, people who are listening in, they'll find a lot of value in what you've had to share today. And this is purely you doing a podcast. One can only imagine the amount of value and understanding they can get about things when they work with you. So, anybody who A needs to network with you, and B who's looking for any sort of career guidance and coaching, how do they reach out to you? Where can they find
So
you?
yes, I mean, we only had an hour together today, so I shared as much as I could. But if if you want more information, if you need additional guidance, the only social media platform that I use is LinkedIn. So I am on LinkedIn. You can search me by first and last name. I don't think there are too many people with my first and last name, so it should be
Yes.
relatively simple to find me. And yeah, reach out to me, say that I saw you on Chirag's podcast and I liked what you shared, and I'm looking for more information, or just want to connect with you, just want to learn more about your journey, and put that personalized note so I know why you're reaching out and where you found me. But please connect with me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content, every single week, so you can definitely follow me and follow along, the career guidance I provide.
That's awesome. Thanks for doing this, Johan. I wish you continued success and more milestones, more recognition coming your way, because you're doing an absolutely phenomenal job in putting great content, great value out there. And in any way, if I can be of any support to you, Extraordinary with Chirag is your vehicle as much as it is mine.
Thank you so much, Chirag, and best wishes to you. Best wishes to your podcast as well. You take so much time, you dedicate so much effort to call the experts, record them. I'm sure there's a lot of work behind the scene that goes into researching the profile, finding out what topics would resonate, coming up with the questions, asking those questions, going back, editing, publishing. So I know it's very time consuming, because my wife, she interviewed hundreds of executives, and she knows, and she's told me how much time and effort it took. So really commendable to what you do. You do this out of your good heart, and you're really giving so much back to the community. And
Thank
I
you.
know for a fact that when you give, you will receive. So good luck to you, and best
Thank you.
wishes to Extraordinary as well.